Hi, this is Jim from TrekWorld, and I have something special for you today. What if I told you I had a complete magazine with technical information and everything from 1968 on the original Star Trek? Now, I became aware probably about a year ago of a special magazine that was released that was an analysis of Star Trek that was produced all the way back in 1968. The TV series was still running when this thing was produced. And when I finally was able to lay my hands on it, which of course is this little fellow right here with a cover price of 75 cents, I was shocked to find out that it's really a full-scale, full-on magazine. And it's pretty darn elaborate, and it is significantly older than most of the professionally produced fanzines that we have seen in that era. Now, it was produced by a company called SC Enterprises, and they were based in New York. And reading it really did almost look like maybe even a Starlog about 10 years before Starlog showed up. Now, when the magazine was made, they obviously had access to the Desilu people because, quite frankly, there was no other outlet, really, to get this kind of information from. And it definitely shows because in the inside panel, you can see where people have written letters to Mr. Spock, William Shatner, So obviously, letters that went originally to Desilu and were picked up by what would have been at this time still Star Trek Enterprises, not Lincoln Enterprises yet, had been turned over to this company to be able to be used for inclusion in this magazine. Now, what was interesting is this was one of the first magazines that I've seen that tackles the phenomenon from the perspective that it thinks that its readers may know about Star Trek, but may not be solid Star Trek fans. This particular magazine was not meant to go out with like Star Trek Enterprises catalogs and things of that nature. It was meant for it. It was destined to go to the general public. Now, like some of the things it said right in the opening, there's a paragraph in there that says, people have marched for it, right for it, researched its possibilities and glorified it. Husbands have alienated themselves watching it, and children have been totally absorbed by it, and Kate Kennedy virtually shuts down for it. Magazines both acclaim it and satirize it. Model and toy companies have tried to copy it. Fan clubs are springing up all over the country, and even button manufacturers are profiting from it. So they did a good job of really describing the phenomenon. I like the fact that what they said basically represents two views on Star Trek. One is, how the fans reacted, the husbands, the children, the wives, things of that nature. But right there in the same mix that they wanted to make sure they played out was there's money in this. Toy companies have tried to copy it. Button manufacturers have made profit with it. So even back in 1968, the ability for Star Trek to generate revenue on the merchandising side was being discussed openly amongst professionals. Now, I don't think that's something that's unique to Star Trek, to be perfectly honest. I don't particularly think that nobody had ever thought about doing that kind of stuff before. I distinctly remember seeing things when I was a little boy from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., but also Land of the Giants, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. There were no shortage of licensing agreements that resulted in toys for kids and stuff. I hate to say it, but not until Star Wars was released in the late 1970s that people began to realize just how much money we're talking about. Not that it's a little niche product, but that it could be a billion-dollar empire. Just ask Kenner Toys. Now, I get asked quite a few times, how do they do the star field effect in Star Trek? And after talking to the Howard Anderson people, this is the way it was described here in this particular magazine. To give the illusion of the Enterprise moving through space, black stars were painted on a 2-foot by 3-foot white background. Of that, a series of black and white mats, which were basically the photographic negative of the 2-foot by 3-foot starfield. And then all of the individual mats are superimposed over each other, moving at different speeds, which gives the illusion of different stars being at different distances, which gives the illusion of distant stars moving at different rates from close stars as the star field tracks across the screen. Finally, a negative result is produced of that mat. Now, ironically, even though photographs obviously existed of the Enterprise being filmed for this series at Howard Anderson at this time, when it came time to actually draw a diagram or illustrate to you exactly what that looked like, they were actually given an artist rendition of what it looks like. They were not given an actual image, which I thought was really unique considering the amount of information they got from Howard Anderson about how complex and detailed the special effects were to create. And they brought up a really good point towards the end of the magazine where they mentioned that it's difficult for traditional writers to write for Star Trek, especially when they're trying to describe something they haven't seen or has never been done before. And they give you a perfect example of the way one particular author described a force field. A columnar-like area of blurry, misty interference of some kind. It's kind of like a gentle whirlwind, but one of force rather than of air current. Faint pastel light and shades appear and disappear. It moves from side to side, gently swaying, and then disappears. It's not too bad. The very last paragraph on the very last page is some true future-seeing, mind-reading stuff here. So I want to read this to you as they talk about what Star Trek is, which is something that everybody and their brother tries to define back in the 60s and 70s. But these people could see the future. Star Trek will never end. After the USS Enterprise ceases its odyssey across galactic seas, other shows will take its place. No doubt, some will be made for children. Some will be a mistake. But one will shine above all the rest. It will have some kind of gigantic craft or base. It'll have ray guns and monsters of the mind. But no matter what, it will be about men and their never-ending quests for the unknown. Wow. There will be shows that'll come in its place. Some will be a mistake. No comment. Some will be made for children. 3 so far. One will shine above the rest? Absolutely. Every Star Trek fan has a favorite TV series. I really, really like, though, that they actually even touched that one of them will have to feature a gigantic craft or base, Deep Space Nine. So this little fellow goes for about $50, $60 when you can find it. If you're lucky enough to find it, it is not easy to find. If you're a Star Trek collector, it is a must-have. There's no question here. This, I think, is probably, to me, the most strategically valuable magazine in my collection, period. I don't care about rarity. I don't care about resale value. This baby right here is a one-of-a-kind, unique object.